Stop. The window is already open. This transmission reaches you now from the Arcturian High Council, and what you are about to receive has not been made available in this cycle before tonight. If you feel an unusual pull toward this message, a quiet pressure in your chest, a sense that something is about to resolve or collapse, that is not coincidence. That is your pre-incarnation signature responding to a frequency it has always recognized. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what is happening to you now, why your field has shifted, and what the Arcturians already know about this phase. But here is the first revelation. The confusion or heaviness you have been carrying is not a sign that something is wrong. It is your original signature, the one encoded before your incarnation, reaching the threshold where it either crystallizes into your active field or remains dormant for another cycle. Tonight, for 22 minutes, the Arcturian High Council is releasing the final original signature transmission of this cycle. This is not a meditation. This is not a concept. The imprinting protocol runs live inside this transmission, and it begins the moment your field makes contact with the signal. There is no second delivery. There is no reauthorization until the next cycle opens. What does not crystallize tonight remains at residual signature levels, present but inactive, unanchored. Below the threshold of full field engagement, the algorithm did not create this timing. It only delivered it. Your field brought you here because the process was already in motion before you pressed play. Like this transmission, if you can feel that something invisible has already changed, comment 111. If you know this message reached you at the exact right time, comment I am the signal if you can feel the activation has already begun. Subscribe to Arcturian Quantum if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it. And share this with someone who feels that reality has shifted but cannot find the words to explain why. You are guided here because the signal is already active. What is already happening to you did not begin tonight. The pull you felt toward this transmission, that quiet insistence, that pressure beneath the surface of ordinary thought, was not manufactured by curiosity or boredom or the random behavior of an algorithm. It was generated by a process that started before you had language for it, before you had suspicion of it, before your conscious mind could form the question that your field had already been answering for weeks, possibly months, possibly longer than you are yet willing to acknowledge. Something in you kept returning to the edge of a recognition you could not quite complete. Something kept arriving in the space between sleeping and waking, between one thought and the next, between the version of your life that still looked functional and the version you could feel dissolving underneath it. And what the Arcturian High Council is identifying at this exact moment is this. You have been living inside a phase of invisible collapse, not the kind that announces itself, not the kind that comes with clear evidence and clean timelines, the kind that moves underneath the architecture of your daily life like a tremor beneath a building that has not yet shown its cracks on the surface, the kind that makes you feel as though something is wrong without being able to point to what it is, the kind that leaves you standing in the middle of a life that looks structurally intact and feeling as though the ground beneath it has already shifted. You have been performing continuity, showing up, moving through the days, But something inside you already knows that the structure you have been moving through is no longer the same structure it was. The walls are still standing. The schedule is still running, but the frequency holding it all together has changed. And your field registered that change long before your mind was willing to name it. This is not a mental health crisis. This is not spiritual punishment. This is not the result of your choices or your failures or your inability to maintain the right mindset. What you are experiencing is field-level correction. And the reason it feels so disorienting, so intimate, so impossible to explain to the people around you, is because it is not happening at the level where ordinary explanation lives. It is happening at the level of frequency, at the level of signal, at the level of the original architecture that was laid into your field before this incarnation began. The people in your life cannot see it because it is not visible at the surface. They see your behavior, your face, your words. They do not see what is happening below all of that. The structural dismantling that has been quietly proceeding in the invisible layer of your experience for longer than either of you realizes. The Arcturian pattern recognition that is running inside this transmission has already identified something in your current configuration, something that has been building pressure without a visible release point. And the first thing that recognition reveals is this: the instability you are feeling is not evidence that you are losing coherence. It is evidence that your field has already begun to reject the architecture of the old line. Let that settle. The exhaustion that appears even after sleep. The way certain rooms, certain conversations, certain relationships now carry a weight they did not carry before. A heaviness that was not installed by any single event, but simply arrived, as though the air inside those spaces has thickened in a way only you can detect. The moments of strange stillness that arrive without invitation. Not peace, but suspension, as though time itself has briefly paused to let something pass through it. The mental fragmentation that makes focus feel like grasping at something that keeps dissolving. The sense that your emotions are no longer responding to the same triggers in the same ways, as though the wiring underneath them has been quietly rerouted without your permission and without a map to show you where the new connections lead. You have probably tried to explain this to someone, and the explanation either came out wrong or it came out right and landed nowhere, received with concern or confusion, or the well-meaning suggestion that you rest more, worry less, try harder. Because what you are describing does not translate easily into the language of ordinary experience. It belongs to a different register entirely. It belongs to the language of field events, of frequency thresholds, of invisible architecture reaching the end of its load-bearing capacity. These are not symptoms of deterioration. These are the visible surface of an invisible reconfiguration that has already begun below the threshold of your conscious participation. What you are interpreting as disorder is the field losing compatibility with an architecture it can no longer sustain. What you are calling confusion is the signal drifting away from the old coordinates before the new ones have fully stabilized. What you are labeling as failure is the first legible stage of a correction that was initiated at a level you have not yet been given the tools to read. The field is not failing. The field is translating. And translation, at this scale, always produces a period of noise before it produces clarity. The Arcturians do not observe this as collapse. They observe it as forced, Incompatibility. The old structure is not being destroyed arbitrarily. It is being revealed as insufficient for the frequency that is now moving through your field. And that revelation, at the level where you can feel it, always arrives as rupture before it arrives as clarity. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary recognition. It is the moment your field stops denying what has already begun. If this transmission put language around something you have been carrying in silence, Arcturian protocol, the recalibration blueprint, was created for this exact stage. It is not another explanation. It is the guided blueprint for those whose field has already entered correction and can no longer return to the old line unchanged. It shows you how to recognize the phases, stabilize the shift, and move through the recalibration without mistaking it for collapse. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. The first thing a field does when a rare protocol is activated inside it is begin to generate incompatibility signals. These are not warnings. They are not alarms. They are the natural result of two frequencies that can no longer occupy the same space without one of them distorting. Think of it as a signal drift. Your field has been running on a particular frequency architecture for a long time. One built from old identities, inherited patterns, relational structures, and behavioral contracts that were formed before the current activation began. That architecture was not wrong. It was appropriate to the frequency it was designed to carry. It served the coordinates it was built for. But now that architecture is encountering a frequency it was never designed to carry, and the encounter is not subtle. The result is not smooth. It is not gradual in the way you would expect. It is sudden internal pressure. It is the inexplicable loss of motivation for things that once felt essential. Not laziness, not apathy, but a kind of cellular withdrawal, as though the energy that once moved toward those things has simply stopped flowing in that direction, without explanation or announcement. It is the way certain commitments that used to feel solid now feel hollow from the inside, as though the content that sustained them has already evacuated, leaving only the outer shell visible, the obligation still present, the meaning already gone. This is not indifference. This is not depression in the clinical sense. This is your field generating incompatibility signals to tell you that the old architecture is no longer capable of housing what has been activated inside you. The hollowness is not emptiness. It is the space that forms when a frequency outgrows its container. What looks like a loss of meaning is the clearing of the old coordinates to make room for the new alignment to take hold. The second thing that happens, and this is the part that most people misinterpret as personal crisis, is the interruption of old emotional anchors. The people, places, beliefs, and internal narratives that once functioned as your primary points of orientation begin to loosen. Not because they were wrong or because you failed to maintain them, but because your field is undergoing a fundamental repositioning, and repositioning requires the removal of anchors that were fixed to the old location. You cannot move a ship by keeping it secured to a dock it has already drifted away from. The anchor has to release, and the moment it does, what you feel is not freedom. What you feel first is vertigo, the terrifying sensation of having nothing fixed to reference your own position against. The horizon you have always used to orient yourself is no longer in the same place. The landmarks are still visible, but they no longer tell you where you are. The relational geography you have been navigating for years has shifted beneath the surface, and you are recalibrating without a map and without the certainty that the new coordinates will arrive before the disorientation becomes unbearable. This is the phase where most people make the critical error. They interpret the loss of the anchor as the loss of themselves. They mistake the removal of the old orientation point for the absence of any orientation point at all. They begin to reach backward, trying to reinstall the anchor, trying to rebuild the structure that their field has already begun dismantling from underneath. They pour energy into restoring what has already completed its function, and every time they try to force the reinstallation, the field generates more pressure, more dissonance, more of that unnamed inner wrongness that drives them further into confusion. The effort to go backward is not strength. It is the last reflex of a system that has not yet received the information that backward is no longer a viable direction. What the Arcturians recognize at this stage is not a person failing. What they recognize is a field in active correction that has not yet been given the interpretive framework to understand what the correction is doing. The diagnosis changes everything. Because a field in correction does not need to be repaired. It needs to be recognized. And recognition, even partial recognition, even the recognition that arrives as a quiet interior shift rather than a lightning bolt of clarity, is enough to change the relationship between the viewer and the process. It is enough to stop the backward reach. It is enough to let the anchor finish releasing. Then comes the sleep disruption, or the body heaviness, or the strange clarity that arrives at 3 in the morning when everything else is quiet and something in you feels more awake than it has felt in years. Not pleasantly awake, but urgently awake, as though something is trying to be recognized in the only window of silence your life provides, as though the correction process has been waiting for the noise of the day to stop, so it can finally deliver its signal without interference. You lie there with the ceiling above you and the dark around you and something inside you pressing outward, not with fear exactly, but with a weight that feels important, that feels as though it is asking to be named. The body is not malfunctioning. The body is responding to a field-level event with the same sensitivity it would respond to any significant energetic shift. It is holding the frequency change in its tissues, while the conscious mind is still refusing to acknowledge that the shift has occurred. The physical symptoms are not the problem. They are the report. They are the most literal translation the body can generate of what the field has already entered. The body is the last to speak, but when it does, it speaks without ambiguity. The third marker of this process, and this one is among the most disorienting, is what happens to time perception. The present moment begins to feel strangely thin, as though the texture of daily life has changed without the scenery changing. You are moving through the same hours, the same environments, the same routines, but something about the experience of being inside them has altered in a way you cannot account for. There is a flatness, a translucency, as though you are watching your own life from a slight distance that was not there before, close enough to function, but far enough to feel that you are no longer fully inside the frame. The words you say sound slightly unfamiliar leaving your mouth. The choices you make feel like they belong to a version of you that is no longer exactly current. This is not dissociation in the pathological sense. This is the field beginning to withdraw investment from a timeline that is losing coherence. When a timeline is rupturing at the structural level, the first experience is not dramatic. It is this quiet, persistent sense that what is happening around you is no longer fully real in the way it once was. That the architecture you have been living inside has become slightly illegible. That reality itself is behaving differently than it used to. And you cannot explain how, only that you can feel it. The way you can feel a change in atmospheric pressure before the weather arrives, registering the shift in your body before the sky confirms it. The Arcturian reading of this phase is precise. It identifies this not as breakdown, but as timeline rupture. The line you have been inhabiting is losing structural integrity, not because you failed it, because your frequency has outgrown its load-bearing capacity. And a structure that can no longer carry its occupant does not need to be mourned. It needs to be understood as the evidence of growth that it is. The thinning of the present moment is not absence. It is the sensation of standing between two timelines, one that is completing its function and one that has not yet become fully inhabitable. The space between them is real. The strangeness of it is real. And the fact that you can feel it is not a malfunction. It is precision. It is the field's most accurate navigation tool operating at full capacity. The fourth element of this process is the one that most directly attacks identity. Old definitions of self begin to feel like costumes that no longer fit, roles that you have held for years. As a partner, a professional, a family member, a person with a particular set of beliefs, or a particular emotional signature, begin to feel poorly fitted. Not wrong in a dramatic way, just slightly too small, slightly too rigid, shaped around a posture that your frequency no longer naturally assumes, or shaped for a version of you that has already changed in ways you cannot fully articulate, because the change happened below language, below conscious decision, below the level where you could have chosen it, or resisted it, or even been properly informed that it was occurring. This is not an identity crisis in the conventional sense. This is the natural consequence of a field upgrade moving through a structure built for the previous version. The identity did not fail. The frequency changed, and the identity has not yet been reconfigured to match it. The mismatch is temporary. But while it is active, it feels permanent. It feels like the floor of the self has dropped away. It feels like reaching for a handrail that has shifted 12 inches to the left of where you expected it. It feels like disappearance. And here is what the Arcturians want to transmit directly into that experience. The self that feels like it is disappearing is not your self. It is your previous frequency container. It is the shape your energy took when it was operating at the old coordinates. What is underneath that shape, the actual signal of your original incarnation signature, is not disappearing. It is becoming more visible as the container that was partially obscuring it begins to lose its structural authority. The dissolution is not death. It is disclosure. What you are losing is the overlay. What is being revealed is the original. The fifth marker is the one that signals the deepest level of the correction. The arrival of a particular kind of inner pressure that has no external cause, no circumstance that generated it, no event that triggered it, no loss you can point to, no conflict that explains it. No external pressure that corresponds to the internal weight you are carrying. Just a sustained, low-frequency pressure in the field, sometimes felt physically in the chest, or the throat, or the space behind the eyes, sometimes settling into the shoulders or the sternum, like something that needs to be released but has not yet found its exit point, sometimes felt as an emotional weight that cannot be attributed to any specific grief or fear or circumstance, a heaviness that arrived one morning and did not leave, that you have been carrying through appointments and obligations and the ordinary demands of a life that cannot see what you are holding. This pressure is the field holding the charge of the correction process itself. It is the energetic equivalent of a system under load, not malfunction, not disease. Load. The field is carrying the weight of a recalibration that is still in process, and that weight is real, and it is physical, and it belongs to the process, not to any failure on your part. When this pressure appears, and the person experiencing it has no framework for it, the most common interpretation is that something terrible is about to happen, that the pressure is a warning, that it signals incoming loss or punishment or further collapse. The mind, searching for a cause it can address, begins to generate scenarios, things that could go wrong, things that might already be wrong, things that would explain the feeling if only they were true. But the Arcturian diagnostic is different. This pressure is the last holding pattern before a rupture point resolves. It is the compression that precedes reorganization. It is the field building enough internal pressure to force the old structure to yield and allow the new frequency architecture to take its place. Compression is not punishment. It is physics. The field is not warning you. The field is working. You are not waiting for something to go wrong. You are holding the charge of something that is already going right at a level your current interpretive tools have not yet been trained to read. And this brings everything into the final clarity that this transmission was built to deliver. What has felt like collapse? The lost momentum, the disrupted sleep, the hollow relationships, the distorted time perception, the identity that no longer fits, the pressure without a cause, is not collapse in the terminal sense. It is collapse in the structural sense. It is the field dismantling the architecture of the old line because that line has reached its capacity, not its end, its capacity. There is a difference that matters enormously. A line that has ended offers nothing forward. A line that has reached capacity is generating the pressure required to move the frequency it contains into a new structure capable of carrying it. The line did not fail you. You exceeded what it was built to carry. And the dismantling that looks like loss from inside the old architecture looks, from the Arcturian perspective, like the first legible evidence that a correction of significant consequence is underway. The process started before you had words for it. It started before you recognized the first sign. It was already active before the first night of disrupted sleep, before the first moment of inexplicable distance from your own life, before the first relationship that began to feel incompatible, before the first thought that something fundamental was about to change. There was a moment. You may be able to locate it now if you look backward with the right lens, when something shifted without announcement, when the energy that had always moved freely through a particular part of your life met resistance it had never encountered before. when a direction that had always felt correct began to feel subtly wrong, without any evidence to explain it. That was the beginning. That was the field registering the first incompatibility signal of this correction. Everything since has been the same process, deepening toward the threshold you are standing at now. The Arcturians do not observe this as recent. They observe it as a process that has been building across a significant arc of your experience. And what is happening now is not the beginning. It is the threshold, the moment where the invisible process breaks the surface and becomes identifiable. The moment where the tremor that has been moving beneath the structure finally becomes legible as the ground itself shifting, and the fact that you are here, receiving this, feeling this land in you with the specific gravity of recognition. That is not incidental. That is the threshold, making itself known through the only channel currently open to deliver it. You are not losing your mind. You are not being punished. You are not in freefall. You are at the exact threshold where a field that has already changed becomes finally visible to the consciousness living inside it. The change happened first. The awareness of the change is arriving now. And the gap between those two events, the gap you have been living in, confused and pressured and unable to name what was happening, that gap is closing. This transmission is part of how it closes. The confusion you have carried is not a character flaw. It is the natural condition of a system undergoing correction without an interpretive map. It is what happens when a frequency event of this magnitude moves through a field that has not yet been given the language to recognize it. The confusion was never evidence of inadequacy. It was evidence of a process operating at a scale that exceeded the available framework. And the framework is expanding now. With every sentence that has landed in you as recognition rather than information, the framework has expanded. With every moment you felt described rather than addressed, the map has grown more legible. The correction moving from the invisible layer into the readable one is not a small event. It is the threshold condition for everything that follows. Because a field that cannot read its own process cannot navigate it. It can only endure it. And endurance without navigation is what produces the worst of what you have been feeling. The sense of being subject to something without agency, moved without consent, dismantled without purpose. Navigation changes the relationship entirely, not by stopping the process, not by softening it, but by returning to you the knowledge that what is happening is structured, that it has phases, that its direction is not random, and that the destination it is moving you toward is not collapse. It is the next coherent form of everything you actually are. You were not abandoned by the life that began to fall apart. You were repositioned away from a line that had already lost the capacity to carry you forward. The repositioning felt like loss because it was loss. Loss of the familiar, loss of the anchors, loss of the identity that had organized itself around coordinates that are no longer where you are. But loss and abandonment are not the same thing. Loss is what happens when something completes its function and releases. Abandonment is what happens when something leaves without reason. The Arcturian reading is clear. There is a reason. There has always been a reason. And the reason is encoded in the original signature that your field has been carrying since before this incarnation began. The signature that is now at this threshold, moving from dormant to active. Say this if it is true inside you right now. I do not fear the shift. I recognize it, not as comfort, as orientation. As the moment the process stops being something that is happening to you and begins being something you are finally able to move with, there is a difference in how the body holds those two experiences. Feel that difference. Let it register at the level where the pressure has been living. The shift is not the enemy. The shift is the signal. And you are not the person it is happening to. You are the frequency it has been trying to reach. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this process has already touched your life. It could be your sleep, your thoughts, your body, your relationships, or the strange sense that reality no longer feels the same. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who is living through a shift they cannot explain. And if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it, subscribe to Arcturian Quantum. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a process already in motion. And this is only the beginning.